Heyo, it's Kameori, and it's wonderful to be talking to you again. Today, I kind of want to talk about how to ensure that physical illness doesn't contribute too much to mental illness. Please stick around to the end of the video to know about some future things that I'm trying to work on, and just a little more things about my channel, I suppose. I want to offer a sort of quick little disclaimer that I couldn't really get into this topic as much as I really wanted to. The ways that I was trying to think about and learn about this sort of subject kind of led me to realize that it's a bit deeper than I thought, and I think I'll maybe cover it more deeply in a future video. But anyway, let's go ahead and get started. So the sort of perspective that I'm going to be using to talk about this is basically from the perspective of asking what the physical affliction does, essentially. So what does it do to your life, basically? The way I think we should go about trying to address these physical afflictions is by asking ourselves, what do they do to our lives? So those are going to be the 5 things that I'm going to be asking and proposing that you ask yourself if you're dealing with anything. Okay, I think the first question you should ask yourself is basically what the affliction stops you from doing. So, for example, if you have a migraine, which I guess isn't truly a physical sort of affliction, but I think you see what I mean. But if you have a migraine, you should try to avoid going outside if it's too bright for you or going somewhere where it's too loud, because like that'll just make you spend too much energy trying to power through that situation instead of energy that you could be spending doing other things, like for example, maybe work or taking care of like some family members or something like that. Like I think the key to a lot of dealing with physical illness is understanding where you should try to power through and understanding where you shouldn't. And I think in this situation, you should really understand where you shouldn't. Similarly to number 1, number 2, we're going to be talking about what things that you need to start doing. So similarly with the case of a headache, similarly with the case of a migraine, I guess I spoiled it a little bit, I want to talk about a headache here. So if you have a headache, you could just try to power through things and have your head be throbbing like all day while you're trying to do something, or you could just take some medicine. That way you wouldn't have to power through the pain of having a headache and you could just keep going with your life. The third thing that I think you should be aware of is how your life changes automatically. So, for example, if you have broken legs, then you'll simply be able or unable to walk. If you're unable to walk, then your life is definitely going to change in a bunch of ways that I think you should be aware of before you sort of like end up in weird situations. So like, for example, if you have like broken legs, then before you end up in a situation where you have to go to the bathroom, but then you like really don't know how to get there, and then you're all depressed about the fact that maybe it's going to take you such a long time to do this simple task, try to understand how your life is going to have to change to deal with this thing that you've lost the ability to do. I think just being aware of this and gaining an acceptance of it early is a lot better than sort of having to moment to moment realize, oh shoot, I can't do that. I think that's really draining on your mental health instead of trying to figure it all out in the beginning and then address your life accordingly. The fourth thing that I think we should think about is basically just a mix of the things that I've mentioned earlier, and that is just to spend your energy wisely. If you're dealing with some sort of physical affliction, you're not at 100%. So if you function as if you are at 100%, then eventually you're going to get really drained, and you might end up just being like really frustrated later or really anxious or maybe even just like depressed because you just feel like you just don't have any to do anything. So before all of that starts, I think we should just develop a sort of understanding that it's gonna be a bit different doing life for a little while because we are dealing with something, and that's okay. For example, I think if we're dealing with sort of a nauseousness or something that's going on in our stomach, then instead of just going, oh, okay, well, we can eat everything that we really want and that'll be fine, we should sort of have to be more mindful about what we eat. And then, although it's a bit more inconvenient because we'll have to sort of perhaps forego eating something that we wanted to eat, we'll definitely make ourselves feel better in the long run, which will not allow us to, or it'll allow us not to be sort of mentally out of it later. The fifth and final thing that I think we should be aware of if we're dealing with a sort of physical illness is basically what things become difficult and how. This is both talking about physical things and mental things. So for example, if we're having like a cold or something like that, for me, sometimes breathing gets a little bit difficult, I suppose. So in order to deal with that, I just have to really be aware of the fact that it'll be tough, but I'll have to like sort of try to, that's one of the things I sort of have to try to push through for as long as I can while using other strategies like blowing my nose and things like that. Because for me, I know that it can really affect like my mental health because it's like really frustrating, like having one of the most basic actions of a human being impeded. So I think that's one thing to keep in mind, like if you have a cold, but for really any other sort of illness, I suppose. So that's all I have right now. Thank you so much for listening. I'm sorry about this video not being up to what I currently expect to be like my uh, tip-top standards, I suppose. This topic was something that really interested me, and I sort of made a promise to a person, a random person, I suppose, that I would talk about it, but I like really simply realized that I couldn't dig in deep enough that as like I wanted to. So sorry about that. But moving forward with my channel, my next video should come out much sooner than this one did, and it's going to be a short though, I suppose, but I'm going to try to learn some things about like filming and editing so that it'll be like up to like a higher production quality, even though the length might not be there as much. Um, but I guess as usual, I want to share a little sort of embarrassing thing that I do recently and then use that to talk about some other plans for my channel. And that is that one day I was in the grocery store and I was doing my job, I suppose. And I had to take some basically things that were like broken or damaged off of the shelves. So one of the things that I found was like a box of sugar cubes. And if you've remembered some of my earlier statements, then you probably know where this is going. It happened to be open, so I was like, oh my god, a sugar cube, a real life sugar cube. I don't think I've ever seen one. And then I just ate one. I just, I wanted it, so I had it, and then I was like, okay, cool. I'll only have that one. And then the one turned into two, and then I was like, well, okay, well, I'll definitely only have two. And then I was like, well, technically it's in a row of three, like, it's like 1, 2, 3, and then I should just go ahead and complete it by taking a third. So I took a third one and then ate it too, and it was a really stupid idea. I really shouldn't like just eat straight up sugar, but I kind of have a problem. But that is one of the things that I intend to talk about quite a bunch on this channel. Sort of things related to like weight loss and things like that. Now, for me, I'll only be talking from my perspective. Uh, to begin with, I suppose. So it won't be much about like proper weight loss. It'll be more about like craving reductions and stuff like that. But it is a topic that I do think is like really interesting and important. So I will try to get into it more in the future. But anyway, thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed, please like and subscribe. And I really do want you to leave a comment. I want that every time. But I guess please do your best to take care of yourself. Bye.